toot toot, maybe it's time to ride the funk train. Well, maybe not. It's Snowmageddon 2024 down south, and I'm stuck on a mountain. So we're going to do some Atari reviews today. And this first game is a weird little guy that I would either blame or praise for this current Atari renaissance. And I think Atari was really smart with this title. And if you hate it or you love it, I think you have to lay down the golden crown at Atari's feet and said, I saw what you did here, and I know where we're going. And so far it's working. Let's check out Atari Mania today.
Hola, child. It's time for Funkmaster V's getting hip with the Atari 7800. Where Funkmaster V, musician, ghost hunter, hat flipper, pro wrestler, and comedian takes you on a tour of all things cool about the Atari 7800. Are you ready to get your groove on? Because it's about to get funky up in here.
About 4 or 5 years ago, Atari was really lost. They were trying to make hotels, Atari hotels, Atari cryptocurrency. They were trying to get into gambling, and somebody slapped somebody in the face and said, what the hell are you doing? Get back to what you know, man. Get back to what this brand means. And that's video games. Get your head out of your ass, son. Come on, what are you doing? I don't know if that was Wade Rosen or somebody else, but he should be nominated for a Pulitzer Prize because over the last year and a half, Atari really has done some pretty cool things. Now, with Atari Mania, they are leaning heavily into nostalgia. And in fact, I will give you another aside. When I was a kid, and I'm talking elementary school, I had some sort of crazy fever dream where I saw some sort of Atari console where you could put different cartridges in, and what it would do is it would conflate these games. It would be like Pac-Man running around in the Pitfall universe and shooting Space Invaders. I actually had that thought in my mind. I thought it was real for a day or two, and then I just decided I was crazy, but I always kind of thought maybe something like that existed because I'm kind of stupid. So let's take that lick and see if we can flip it. Today, Atari Mania takes a lot of those ideas that I had as a child with a fever dream and makes it a reality. If you've ever played WarioWare for Nintendo, it's a lot like that. But my problem with WarioWare was it's a little childish for the age that I was introduced to it. So I never really liked that series. But using old school Atari games and combining different elements and making a ton of quick little mini games is interesting to me. So like WarioWare, half of the game is figuring out what you're supposed to do quickly. These games can range from 1 or 2 seconds up to 30 seconds. Boss battles probably up to a minute, and oftentimes they combine different scenarios and create some pretty interesting mini games for you to horse around with. For example, you can the Missile Command Terrain against the Pong balls. Well, I guess they're squares because they didn't have the graphics for balls back in the day. I'm sure your mom was disappointed about that. You can be Bentley Bear, jumping over Bentley Bear enemies, trying to catch the skydivers as they jump out of the skydiving plane. One of my favorites is you take the arsenal from Air-Sea Battle and you just shoot like crazy up in the sky, taking down these skydiver planes as these poor men float down, trying to land on these pads, but you can also kill them with the Breakout paddle. So yes, it's pretty funny what we have going on here. And most of these are pretty interesting, and they're actually pretty fun to play. Everything in the game takes place in Atari headquarters, which I believe is fictitious. If not, I want to go. And you are the caretaker. That is a fancy term for janitor. But you are the only person in the entire building that can save all of our video game friends from these dead pixels that are taking over, and they're basically absorbing them out of their games and their environments, and they're creating these conflated monstrosities that we have to play through. Going through Atari headquarters is fun, and there's a lot of neat things to see, and messes to clean up, and actually items to collect to help you navigate yourself through the Atari headquarters. Now that there's an evil presence, it's not so easy to go from room to room. For example, you may need the magnet from Adventure to move a block out of your way so you can pass it. You may need the bridge from Adventure to climb over a wall that now has some sort of barricade. and you may need a grappling hook from like Sword Quest to careen yourself across a chasm. None of the puzzles presented in the navigation of the building is very difficult, but they are fun to see. There's secrets abound. You can unlock tons of posters. You can unlock instruction books by playing against the mice. You can bait with cheese that you find to come out of the walls. There's a lot of unique ideas here. I feel like it's important to say that the versions of these Atari games that we play are all 2600 games. There's no 5200 games. There's no 7800 games. There's no versions that are any different than the Atari 2600, not even the arcade. The graphics are hit or miss in the games. Sometimes I feel like, I understand this is supposed to be rudimentary looking, and this is supposed to look nostalgic, but sometimes it just looks kind of weird, like cell phone game or Java game type graphics instead of leaning into the 8-bit. It looks like fake 8-bit sometimes, if that makes sense. The graphics outside of the video games, to me, are much better in that universe of the world where you can walk around and talk to the characters or horse around with the items inside of the building. When you get into the games, that's when it's kind of strange. This may be an advanced concept, or maybe I'm talking out of my butt, but the gameplay is pretty right on with the 2600 versions of these titles, because sometimes the 2600 games were real stiff. I feel like the Yar's Revenge elements are kind of real stiff. The problem comes in with Gravitar and Asteroids. This almost ruins the experience because they use the Asteroid ship a lot, and it does not control at all like the Atari 2600 version of Asteroids. And Gravitar, forget about it. It is a nightmare. If you can get over those obstacles, you can find a lot of fun here. So basically, when you confront a boss, it's almost like sports. You kind of have to get to him by playing and succeeding through numerous mini games, and if you take on too many losses, you don't reach him, or if you get to him and you don't lose any lives at all, or if you win every game, you can have several chances at taking him out. Once you defeat a boss, you'll figure out how to get to the next level, which is typically the next floor, until you reach the final boss. And the final level in this game, kids, is pretty rough. So be prepared. The music in this game is good and peppy. It's not 100% generic like some of these other games for the Atari. The gameplay is hit and miss. But man, I'm telling you, if you are an Atari person, there's probably something here for you. So grading this is kind of tough. I think if you're a new kid on the block, or you're in sync, either one, or UB40, which they sucked completely. But anyway, if you're not an Atari person, this game's going to be kind of weird and antiquated to you. If you are an Atari person, I think you're really going to like it. If you're a Nintendo person, if you're under the age of 30, if you're an Xbox or a computer type gamer, this is going to be about a 2.5. It's going to be pretty weak because you're not going to get any of the references and you're not going to care to. If you're an Atari person, this could be a 4.5 out of 5 game, but I'm going to chill it back a little bit and temper the score down to about a 3.5. I think it's a good game. I think they should have fixed the ships in Gravitar and Asteroids, and the graphics could have been a little bit more faithful to the original source material. Sometimes the artistic choices are good, and sometimes they're not so good. But overall, it's a very challenging game that I think is definitely worth a purchase, especially if you are an Atari person. Now, getting back to my final point, about this being the catalyst for the new revival, the new renaissance of Atari, is they started introducing you to characters you already knew, or maybe you didn't even know they were characters. They gave names to the guys from Dark Chambers, like the first player one is now Adam. The kid, or the set of eyeballs in Haunted House, is named Warren. The guy from Outlaw is Pete. If you can tell, they're playing a little bit of 4D chess here, because they're probably going to start implementing more games where we're like, oh, this is our old buddy Pete, which they already did with Food Fight, Culinary Combat, where you run into Pete and a couple other people that normally you would have probably pissed on and not given any spare change as you walk to your really, really expensive Rolls Royce because you do not love God. I know Atari Mania has been out for a while, I think it's an important game to look at for what it, I think, started, because this came out before the Atari 50th celebration, and that was the real catalyst into all this Atari momentum. All right, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. I do a podcast every 2 weeks with the 7800 Pro System Gamer over at the Atari Network. Make sure you check out our website, Atari7800forever.com, every game reviewed. Check out our movies, too, especially if you're snowed in. They're all streaming on Reveal TV right now, and you can have yourself a big and funky horror comedy movie marathon. We're going to shoot out a couple of these this week just because of the snow, so enjoy the content, y'all.